Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Dr. Shaw, thanks for joining us. It's good to see you again. We have discussed this issue before. I wanted to just go back to a topic related to the Food for Peace program and how it affects American, Kansas farm producers all across our districts who are part of producing grain and other products, meat products, et cetera, that are sent around the world to help deal with world hunger. It's been sort of a two-part relationship. One, we're helping feed hungry people, and two, we're putting American producers to work. These products come with a label saying, you know, furnished by the American people, or you know, being furnished by the people of the United States of America. It's a source of pride, I think, for our country when we see those bags of grain with our label on them go to the right places. The President's budget would allow 25% of that aid, as I'm sure you're well aware, which is equivalent of $282 million, to go to cash assistance as opposed to food assistance. In light of the Farm Bill debate, in which Congress had a chance to litigate this issue and determined to keep the food aid programs the way they are in the status quo, is the administration going to continue to move forward with this budget request as opposed to changing the underlying law, but to use the appropriations process to change how we administer the dollars? Do you agree with my concerns related to less American farmers being helped? What are your thoughts on that? And I'm very concerned about it. And are you concerned about an erosion of public support for the program if more of the dollars are direct aid dollars as opposed to dollars that are coming back to pay farmers and producers in the country?
Thank you, Congressman, for the question. I appreciate the points that you raise, and the reason President Obama put forth the proposal last year and this year to reform and modernize this program is because we're facing an acute crisis in terms of humanitarian crises in a number of places that strip our current ability to provide humanitarian services. And we have a proud Food for Peace history. We have reached more than 3 billion people over more than 50 years. But frankly, the value and the size and the consequence of the program has been diminishing over time because of the higher cost structure of a model of assistance where we buy food here, put it on American ships, send it into communities, sometimes sell it in communities to raise cash that we then give to NGOs. That's not as efficient as it used to be, and we believe that a modest incremental reform will allow us this year to reach 2 million additional hungry kids in Syria, Central African Republic, and South Sudan, not cost America anything additional, and continue to support farmers. And here's why I think we'll continue to support farmers. This whole program is only 0.56% of total agricultural exports by value. Most of the major partners we have in the program will continue to be partners, and will continue to be partners at a very large scale. We're talking about 25% of $1 billion in a $1.4 billion program. Second, we're now moving the product mix that we're sending from America into more specially designed medical foods, whether it's peanut paste or NutriButter, and those higher value products are appropriate for the American food system, which, as you know, is the best and most advanced in the world. And so I think America is always going to have a huge role to play. But I think our farm partners in particular understand the challenges here. The National Farmers Union has expressed support for the President's reforms, as has Cargill and a number of companies that people might have thought would not. And over time, I think we'll build a broad enough tent to continue to allow America to actually be the leader we need to be in these humanitarian settings. And we'd appreciate your support for these modest reforms that will continue to make sure people see that American contributions are what are fueling these strong responses in the Philippines and South Sudan and Syria.
Well, in light of our efforts around the globe, whether it's the Food for Peace or food aid programs or whatever it may be, as we add more money into the system, the potential for fraud and corruption and misuse grows. Dollars are easier to probably fraud the government out of than a bag of grain, although that happens as well, in many cases as significantly. So I worry as we move it into dollars as opposed to grain that might become more troublesome. There have been lots and lots of accounts, media reports, IG reports about fraud and waste in Afghanistan aid, malaria drugs being sold on the black market that were not going to the intended recipients. I'm sure you've been well aware of many of these situations. Could you outline for us where our biggest fraud risks are? What % of our food aid and our foreign aid as part of USAID is being frauded or not getting to the right recipients based upon your analysis, and what are we doing to cure that?
Thank you. You know, we have, I think, a very strong program in place to oversee how we spend resources and mitigate the risks of fraud, waste, and abuse. There are times, I'd say war zones of all kind increase the risks. So active conflict environments in Afghanistan, you know, providing trucking food around Somalia through al-Shabaab controlled areas a couple of years ago. Those are the kinds of environments that have the highest risks for waste, fraud, and abuse. The reality is most of our program, the great majority, are not provided under those contexts and those terms. And we have a very strong oversight system that includes the Inspector General. It includes very clear reporting. For any resources we provide directly to local partners or countries in particular, we provide them on a receipt basis, so we evaluate the receipts and the cost they've incurred and then reimburse them for incurred expenses. And you know, I've worked at the Gates Foundation, I now work here. I understand accountability is critical, and we've increased our accountability systems very significantly in places like Afghanistan. In general, we almost, I mean, we don't overinvest in it, but we do create a lot of bureaucracy to track every penny. I understand why that's important, but I think we're covered in terms of having a very, very strong accountability system when it comes to waste, fraud, and abuse. And as it relates to your last comment, I'll just say that we have now been, since the Bush administration, implementing local and regional purchase in food aid. And we have not only found no higher rate of waste, fraud, and abuse there, we've actually found it brings the cost down, gets the food faster to people in need, and often is the more appropriate mix of products that they need, like in the Philippines response.
Well, I look forward to working with you to ensure that we improve the integrity of these programs. I think nothing probably angers our constituents more than seeing American dollars wasted on a program where it's not intended to be overseas. Thank you, Mr.
Thank you.